Claire sat by the window, watching the rain streak across the glass, the steady drizzle echoing the quiet rhythm of her life. She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, feeling the familiar weight of routine pressing down on her. Work had been exhausting. The house felt emptier than it should, and Daniel, her husband, seemed kind and loving, but distant in small ways she couldn't ignore. It wasn't a big fight or a huge misunderstanding. It was the quiet kind of drift that sneaks in without warning, leaving her wondering if she was imagining things. The phone rang suddenly, breaking the soft hum of the rain and the quiet of the afternoon. Claire picked it up, expecting a casual call from a friend, but the voice on the other end made her heart skip a beat. "Claire, can I come stay with you for a while?" Emily's voice sounded cheerful, full of energy, and just a little anxious. "I just need a break from everything, a little escape." Claire froze for a second, unsure what to say. She loved Emily, of course she did, but her sister had always been the whirlwind in every situation, the one who stirred emotions just by walking into a room. "Sure, are you okay?" "A few weeks?" Claire asked carefully, trying to hide the flicker of nervousness in her chest. "Yeah, I'm okay," Emily said quickly. I just need a change, and I know your place always feels like home. I promise it won't be a problem." Claire swallowed, forcing a smile she knew Emily couldn't see over the phone. "All right, then, we'll figure it out. I'll make room, just be careful." Hanging up, Claire felt a mixture of excitement and unease. She loved her sister's visits, but she also knew how unpredictable Emily could be. Sometimes she came with energy that lifted the whole house, sometimes with charm that left Claire feeling small and insecure. As she set the phone down, Claire tried to push the worry aside and imagine the weeks ahead filled with laughter, old stories, and the easy connection only sisters share. The next morning, Claire heard the familiar sound of a car pulling up outside, and Emily was there, suitcase in hand, rain dripping from her hair. She ran to hug her, the comfort of her sister's embrace melting some of the tension in her shoulders. "It's so good to see you, Claire," Emily said, her smile bright, almost blinding. "I've missed you so much." "I've missed you too, Claire replied, feeling warmth and relief, but also the small, nagging thought she tried to ignore, that the calm of her home was about to be stirred, and she wasn't sure she was ready. Daniel appeared behind her in the doorway, his coat damp from the rain, smiling politely at Emily. "Emily, it's been a while," he said, his voice warm, but casual, his eyes meeting hers for a little longer than usual. Claire noticed the subtle pause, the faint lift at the corners of his mouth, a reaction that made her chest tighten unexpectedly. Over breakfast, the three of them chatted and laughed, Emily telling stories about work, friends, and her small adventures, Daniel laughing along, leaning slightly closer to hear her better. Claire couldn't help noticing the energy in the room had changed. It felt lighter, faster, alive, and she couldn't shake the flutter of uncertainty at the back of her mind. She tried to focus on the conversation, but her eyes kept flicking between them, watching the easy comfort they shared, wondering why. It stirred something she didn't understand. As the day went on, Emily settled in quickly, unpacking her things, arranging the guest room with her usual flair, and filling the house with a sense of motion and life. Claire felt a combination of relief and nervousness. The house was no longer quiet, no longer predictable, and though she loved the energy, she also felt the tiny, prickling sense that everything familiar was shifting. Daniel offered to help Emily with the boxes, carrying them in with her, joking about how she had overpacked, and Claire felt a flash of irritation, a small protective spark she tried to ignore. Was it unreasonable to feel a little jealous of how easily they seemed to connect? She shook the thought off, telling herself she was imagining it, that it was just her own insecurities flaring. Later, when Emily and Daniel were in the living room, Claire went to the kitchen, trying to calm her thoughts with a cup of tea, but she couldn't stop listening to the soft laughter drifting from the other room, the way their voices mingled so naturally, a sound that should have been comforting, but instead felt like a subtle intrusion into the rhythm she and Daniel had, the quiet bond they shared. Claire tried to distract herself with chores, cleaning, organizing, anything to keep her mind from racing, but every small laugh, every glance exchanged between Daniel and Emily, pulled her focus back. She noticed tiny details. The way Daniel's eyes lit up when Emily told a story, the way Emily leaned slightly toward him when she spoke, the subtle shifts in posture and tone that made her heart beat faster. That evening, dinner was quiet at first, the rain pattering against the windows, the house soft with shadows, Emily chatting about a funny story from work, Daniel smiling and shaking his head, and Claire couldn't help but notice the ease with which they interacted, the laughter that came effortlessly, almost like music filling the room. After dinner, Emily suggested a movie night, and Daniel agreed quickly, his enthusiasm catching Claire off guard. They spread out on the living room couch, Emily between them, and Claire felt a strange mix of comfort and tension. It was normal for her sister to be close, and yet, seeing Daniel so relaxed and attentive made Claire's stomach flutter in a way she hadn't expected. As the movie played, Claire watched them both, her mind spinning with questions she didn't want to ask, about why her heart felt tight, why small gestures of Daniel's attention seemed so much bigger now. She realized, in a quiet, unsettling way, that her sister's presence was stirring something inside the house, inside Daniel, and perhaps even inside herself. Later, as Emily settled into the guest room, Claire and Daniel sat in the kitchen, drinking late-night tea, the house silent except for the rain. Claire tried to act normal, but the words she wanted to say felt heavy, impossible to get out. Daniel noticed her tension, his brow furrowing, and reached across the table. "Hey, you okay?" he asked gently, his hand brushing hers, the small contact sending a shiver of reassurance and fear at the same time. I think so," Claire murmured, forcing a smile. "It's just different, having Emily here," she admitted finally, her voice low, honest. "It's like the house feels alive, but I don't know how to keep up." Daniel smiled, a slow, understanding smile. "It's her energy, Claire. She has a way of making everything feel bigger, brighter," he said softly, squeezing her hand. "But don't worry, I'm here, okay?" "We're okay." Claire nodded, trying to trust his words, but as she went to bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the next few weeks would change something in ways she couldn't predict. She loved her sister dearly, and she loved Daniel, but the house felt charged with new energy, a quiet tension that promised laughter, challenges, and emotional twists. As she drifted to sleep, the rain continued to fall, a soft, persistent rhythm, and Claire realized that everything familiar was about to shift, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Claire woke the next morning to the sound of laughter drifting from the living room. She rubbed her eyes and yawned, expecting the normal quiet of a Saturday morning, but instead she heard Daniel and Emily talking, their voices easy, lively, the kind of easy chatter that made the house feel full in a way Claire hadn't anticipated. She froze for a moment, listening to the way Daniel's laughter came so naturally, and the way Emily's smile could be heard even in her tone. She made her way to the kitchen quietly, trying not to interrupt, but as she poured her coffee, she noticed him through the doorway, Daniel leaning forward, elbows on his knees, smiling at Emily, the warmth in his expression making her heart tighten. It wasn't anger or jealousy, just an unfamiliar flutter of worry, a question she couldn't quite place. Why did it feel different when Emily was around? Breakfast was a mix of laughter and teasing, Emily telling another story about her coworkers, Daniel leaning close, nodding, laughing at all the right moments, and Claire tried to smile along. But she felt a strange distance from the easy connection in front of her. She realized it wasn't just Emily's presence that unsettled her, it was the way Daniel seemed to respond to her, the way his attention shifted even slightly. That made her question the quiet balance of their life together. After breakfast, Emily suggested they go out for a short walk despite the lingering drizzle. Daniel agreed quickly, grabbing an umbrella. "Let's get some fresh air, it'll feel good," he said with a smile that made Claire's chest ache just a little. She followed behind them, noticing how effortlessly they walked side by side, how Emily leaned toward him to hear his words, how naturally he matched her pace, his hand occasionally brushing hers in a casual, friendly gesture, but Claire felt each touch like a spark she wasn't expecting. As they returned home, Claire tried to shake off the lingering tension, focusing on small tasks around the house, folding laundry, arranging flowers, anything to distract herself from the tight knot of emotions in her chest. She noticed how Emily laughed easily at everything Daniel said, how she gestured animatedly, and how Daniel's eyes lingered a little too long on her sister's face, the kind of look that made Claire want to look away, but she couldn't, her curiosity and unease rooting her to the spot. Later, while Claire prepared lunch, Daniel came into the kitchen, offering to help chop vegetables. "I've got this, you take a break," he said, his tone soft, considerate, but Claire couldn't shake the feeling of watching him with Emily, the ease he seemed to show with her, the attention he gave her that had always been reserved for Claire alone. She told herself she was overthinking, that nothing had changed, but the feeling in her chest refused to leave, a quiet tension threading through every smile and glance. Emily noticed it too, in small ways, her laughter softening, her tone careful when she spoke to Claire, but she didn't understand the storm she had quietly set in motion. She didn't mean to unsettle anyone, she just brought her usual energy, the charm that had always been part of her personality, and now it seemed to ripple through the house in unexpected ways. That afternoon, Daniel suggested they all try a new recipe together, turning the kitchen into a chaotic, fun space filled with the clatter of utensils and bursts of laughter, Emily leaning close to him as they stirred, sharing inside jokes, Daniel matching her energy, and Claire felt a strange mix of relief and worry. Relief because the house was alive and happy, worry because the way Daniel engaged with Emily seemed different from before, warmer, more attentive, and it left her feeling like an observer in her own home. She stepped back for a moment, watching them, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks as she realized how close they seemed, how natural their gestures were, how Daniel's attention had subtly shifted. She wanted to say something, confront him, ask if she was imagining it, but the words caught in her throat, and she couldn't, not yet, not when the house felt so fragile, so alive with energy. The next day, Claire noticed the small things that made her heart tighten, Daniel bringing Emily her favorite tea without being asked, Daniel laughing at stories she didn't even think were that funny, Emily leaning on his shoulder briefly while reading a recipe on the phone, and the way his eyes lingered when he smiled at her, small, innocent gestures, yet they felt charged with something Claire couldn't name. She realized the shift wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a betrayal, it was quiet, subtle. and yet it left her heart racing in ways she hadn't expected. That evening, Claire tried to talk to Daniel alone while Emily was in the guest room, but as soon as she started, the words faltered, and all she could manage was, "It's different having Emily here." His eyes softened, and he reached for her hand. "Claire, nothing has changed. I love you. I always will," he said gently, but she noticed the flicker of amusement, almost like he was amused by her nervousness, and it made her wonder if he saw the subtle tension herself couldn't hide. The weekend passed in a blur of small incidents, Emily and Daniel sharing jokes in the living room, Claire catching glimpses of subtle touches, fleeting glances, the easy connection they seemed to share, and Claire found herself torn between trust and uncertainty. She wanted to believe in her husband completely, yet the quiet shift in his attention, the ease with which he interacted with her sister, left her heart fluttering in ways she didn't understand. One rainy afternoon, the three of them decided to play board games, the living room alive with laughter, Emily teasing Claire gently, Daniel joining in with playful commentary, and the house felt warm, yet Claire couldn't ignore the subtle tension threading through it, the unspoken feelings hovering in the space between gestures and words. She noticed how Daniel leaned slightly closer to Emily when he laughed, how Emily's hand brushed his casually, and how her own heartbeat raced in response to small things that should have been innocent. Claire tried to focus on fun, on the game, but her mind wandered, analyzing every glance, every smile, every laugh, trying to measure what was normal, what was just family, and what felt different. She realized that the storm wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, subtle, and growing in the corners of her mind, the kind of storm that made her feel both protective and unsure at the same time. Later that night, Emily suggested a short walk in the rain, and Daniel agreed enthusiastically, grabbing the umbrellas. The three of them stepped into the drizzle, and Claire noticed how naturally Emily and Daniel walked side by side, how their conversation flowed effortlessly, how she felt like a spectator to a connection she didn't want to break. When they returned, Claire made tea for everyone, trying to calm the fluttering in her chest, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in the house, in her husband, something quiet but undeniable. She realized she needed to confront her feelings, to understand what was happening, but fear and uncertainty made her hesitate. The following days were a delicate balance of ordinary life and subtle tension, Emily's energy filling the house, Daniel's attention occasionally lingering, and Claire caught between comfort and worry. She observed, noting the small things, the way he looked at Emily when she spoke, the little gestures that were innocent but seemed charged with attention, the laughter that seemed warmer, fuller, when they were together. Claire tried to remind herself of Daniel's words, of the love they shared, of the trust that had always been the foundation of their marriage, but the quiet storm of emotions Emily's presence had stirred refused to settle, leaving her heart tight, her mind restless, and her thoughts circling questions she couldn't voice. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows, Claire finally gathered the courage to speak. "Daniel, I need to know what's happening. Why do I feel this way?" she asked softly, her hands trembling slightly. Her voice carried the mix of fear and hope that had been building over days. Daniel looked at her, eyes steady, sincere. "Claire, nothing has changed between us. I love you. I always will," he said again, gently taking her hands in his. "Emily is your sister, and I care about her too, but she doesn't change us. Don't let your heart worry over small things. We're strong together." Claire felt a mixture of relief and lingering unease. She wanted to believe him completely, but the quiet tension in the house, the subtle closeness she had witnessed, left her heart restless. She realized that the next few weeks would test her trust, her emotions, and her understanding of love and family in ways she couldn't yet predict. As she went to bed that night, listening to the rain, she knew that the house was alive with energy, laughter, and subtle emotional shifts. She loved her sister, she loved her husband, and she knew that the quiet storm would pass. But she also understood that some feelings couldn't be ignored, only watched, understood, and faced. The night passed with restless dreams, echoes of laughter, small touches, fleeting glances, and Claire realized that the coming days would shape her understanding of love, trust, and the delicate balance of family and marriage, and she wasn't sure how it would all unfold. The following week passed in a blur of activity, the house alive with energy, laughter, and subtle tension. Claire noticed everything more keenly than before, every glance, every gesture, every small shift in Daniel's attention toward Emily. She loved her sister, she trusted her husband, but a quiet storm lingered inside her, a mix of curiosity, protectiveness, and unease. Emily's presence had always brought warmth, but now it stirred something delicate and complicated. Claire couldn't deny that the house felt different. The balance shifted slightly, not in a dramatic way, but in quiet, almost imperceptible ways that left her heart racing. Daniel's smiles lingered longer. His tone carried a soft warmth when he spoke to Emily, and even small touches seemed more intentional than before. One afternoon, Claire decided to take a walk alone to clear her head, letting the crisp air wash over her. She thought about everything she had observed, every moment that made her feel unsettled, but she also thought about Daniel's words, his reassurance, the way he had held her hands and promised nothing had changed. She knew she wanted to trust him, but the mind and heart are not always in sync. Returning home, she found the two of them in the living room, Emily perched on the arm of the couch, Daniel leaning slightly toward her, the two of them laughing quietly over something on his phone. Claire paused in the doorway, feeling the familiar tightness in her chest. She wanted to interrupt, to make them aware of her presence, but something held her back, a quiet understanding that this was just the way they were, natural, easy, harmless. As the days went on, Claire began noticing more than just gestures and smiles. She noticed the subtler things, Daniel listening intently to Emily's stories, the little jokes that only they seemed to understand, the ease with which they moved through shared spaces, and it made her reflect on her own feelings. She realized that much of her unease came from insecurity and fear of losing the closeness she had always shared with her husband, not from any wrongdoing. One evening, as the rain fell softly against the windows, Claire suggested they all watch an old movie together. The three of them huddled under blankets on the couch, Emily in the middle, and Daniel and Claire on either side. The movie was light and funny, but Claire's attention kept drifting to the subtle interactions between the two of them, the small smiles, the brief touches of hands, the way their laughter mingled effortlessly. She felt a pang of jealousy but also a surprising warmth, realizing that this closeness didn't diminish her relationship with Daniel. It only highlighted the love and patience he had for both her and her sister. Claire began to understand that trust wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, a conscious effort to see the truth beyond fleeting emotions and uncertainty. Later that night, after Emily had gone to bed, Claire found Daniel in the kitchen, quietly making tea. His expression softened when he saw her, and he gestured for her to sit. "Claire, talk to me," he said gently. "I know it's been different with Emily here, but I want you to know that nothing has changed between us." Claire felt a lump in her throat, emotions swelling in waves. "I know, Daniel, it's not about you, it's me, it's just. I've never seen you so warm with someone else. It caught me off guard," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Daniel reached for her hand, holding it with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "That's because I care about her, Claire. She's your sister, and I love her for the same reasons I love you, but it doesn't mean anything changes here. With us, nothing shifts our bond. Nothing can." Claire nodded, feeling relief and love wash over her, but also a lingering sense of awe at how easily her husband could navigate emotions so complicated yet so pure. She realized that this experience was teaching her patience, trust, and the power of love that doesn't feel threatened by family, by closeness, or by small emotional shifts. The next morning, Emily woke up early, humming softly, and Claire joined her in the kitchen to make breakfast. The two sisters worked side by side, the comfortable silence between them full of shared history, laughs, and small confessions. Claire felt a sense of connection she hadn't felt in a while, and she realized that her worry about Daniel and Emily had been clouded by her own insecurities, not by reality. When Daniel entered, carrying a tray of coffee, he smiled at them both, a warm smile that said everything. He didn't need to speak, his presence alone reassured Claire. She watched him carefully, taking in the love and care in his every action, the ease with which he moved between them, and felt her heart open again, fully trusting the bond they shared. Later that day, the three of them decided to go for a short drive to clear their minds and enjoy the sunny weather. The ride was filled with conversation, laughter, and playful teasing. Claire noticed the small gestures, the way Daniel's hand brushed hers when reaching for the map, the way Emily leaned slightly toward him while sharing a funny story, and for the first time, Claire felt not tension, but warmth, understanding, and relief. She realized that the closeness between Daniel and Emily was harmless, natural, and even beautiful in its own way. At home, dinner was a lively affair, Claire, Emily, and Daniel joking, sharing stories from their day, the house full of life and comfort. Claire felt an unexpected sense of gratitude. She realized that her husband's love didn't diminish when he showed care or attention to someone else she loved. It expanded, enveloping everyone in the house, creating a bond that was stronger, richer, and more resilient than she had imagined. That night, as Claire tucked Emily into the guest room, her sister looked at her with a soft, honest smile. "I hope I didn't make things awkward, Claire," she said quietly. "I just wanted to be here for you." Claire shook her head, smiling back. "You didn't, Em. You just brought a lot of energy, and it made me realize things about myself too. I've been holding on to small worries that weren't real. I see that now." Emily hugged her tightly. "I'm glad, Claire. I didn't want to disturb your life. I just wanted to be here," she whispered, and Claire felt a wave of relief, the knot of tension in her chest dissolving, leaving warmth and clarity in its place. Later, Claire and Daniel sat together in the living room, the soft glow of lamps casting a gentle light around them. Claire leaned against him, feeling his steady presence, the security and love they shared. "I understand now," she murmured. "I was afraid of small things, of change, but I see that love doesn't disappear just because life shifts a little." Daniel kissed her forehead softly. "That's right, Claire. Love grows stronger when tested, when challenged, when it sees the truth beyond fear. You're my heart, always," he said, his voice carrying warmth and reassurance. The next morning, Emily prepared to leave, her bags packed, the house quieter than it had been all week. Claire felt a mixture of sadness and peace. She had faced her fears, watched the quiet shifts, and discovered the strength of her love and trust. She realized that the experience had not weakened her bond with Daniel but had strengthened it, showing her how resilient their love truly was. When Emily hugged them both, promising to return soon, Claire felt her heart full, grateful for her sister, for her husband, for the lessons she had learned. She watched her drive away, the car disappearing down the street, and felt a quiet joy in knowing that love, trust, and family had endured. Later, Claire and Daniel sat together in the garden, the afternoon sun warming their faces. He reached for her hand, intertwining fingers. "See, nothing broke, everything just grew," he said with a smile, and Claire laughed softly, nodding, realizing he was right. The days that followed returned to a peaceful rhythm, filled with work, laughter, quiet conversations, and simple moments. But Claire carried with her the memory of the week Emily had stayed, the lessons in trust, patience, and understanding. She knew now that love didn't need to be guarded like a fragile object. It could be expansive, inclusive, and resilient. Every small glance, every shared laugh, every quiet gesture between them became proof that life could hold surprises without fear. That night, as Claire lay in bed, Daniel beside her, she reflected on the past week, the tension, the confusion, the lessons, and realized that her heart was full in a way it hadn't been before, ready to embrace love in its truest, strongest form. She smiled softly, feeling Daniel's steady breathing next to her, remembering Emily's laughter in the house, and the gentle moments that had revealed the depth of her own feelings. Claire finally understood that love, trust, and family were not fragile. They were living, growing things, and the quiet storm had passed, leaving only warmth, connection, and an unshakable bond that would endure. As the house settled into evening calm, rain tapping lightly at the windows, Claire felt a deep sense of peace, her heart open, her mind clear, ready for whatever life would bring. She realized that challenges, misunderstandings, and unexpected emotions didn't weaken love, they strengthened it, and she had witnessed that truth firsthand. The quiet moments, the laughter, the lessons learned, they had changed her, strengthened her, and reminded her that love, above all, was unshakable when it was true.